Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA Detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Fantastic. Thank you for all the love and support this year, helping us grow. This is fantastic. We're taking up Joe Rogan. Look out. I mean, what are they going to give us? Probably 200 million they're probably going to offer us here soon. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, not there. So keep liking and sharing, subscribing, and give us some comments, man. I like to answer comments. Mike likes to answer. Miguel, he loves it. All we do is talk about the comments. So please bring them back to us. And now, as you can see, no fourth person here. I mean, we can't be doing deep dives all the time, especially end of the year. We have to come up with our favorite parts of this year, man. We want to know what you guys thought was our favorite, but we're going to tell you what we think is our favorites. So who wants to start? I think you guys want me to start, right? Probably. I don't know. What do you guys want to do?
Let's go, Miguel.
Mike?
Let's do it.
Miguel, go ahead.
Let's start with the guy that actually graduated college.
Well, May of this year, we kind of made it official and decided to kind of, do a schedule and stuff like that. One of my favorite things is this.
Oh, hey.
This is new. The wife got me a new LOP shirt, so everybody else out there should get on that stuff. But yeah, I think you mean favorite podcasts, not favorite moments, right? So I don't know. I think my favorite ones were some of the old school ones, Mike, the ones that you don't like, Mike likes the racy ones, and I like the boring ones. Gary Myers, Tom Erickson.
I like Gary. I like Tom.
Paul Varlins.
Paul was great.
Varlins, I think was like a historic one that people really, like I like, it was one of our first ones, so I know we would do a much better job now, and you kind of felt it slip through your fingers. So that one's a bittersweet one for me. So I don't know. I can think of it. I love them all, Mike.
I think Paul Varlins, the thing with Paul is like we've got a set format. I think our format really kind of came right before Gabe Rudiger is kind of where we found our kind of like our niche. Like we knew what we were going to do. It's just how we went about it because, I mean, Chris, we'd have like Jeff Montz and Dennis Hallman, and I'd be like 45 fights in and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. But when we broke it up into like different segments, it kind of made it easier. Not only it made it better to document history, but Paul Varlins, that's one I wish we could have back because, obviously he's gone and the format now is, I think, more structured than then, but we still got a lot of good stuff out of him. Like that's an interview we should be proud of, truth be told.
And here's another one with that, a lot of what we do, a lot of what we like to focus on is the early days, how you got from A to B, how you got started, he didn't have a lot. I mean, he was so old school that there was no beginning. His beginning was he went to a gym and they go, okay, we're going to get you in the Ultimate Fight UFC. And they did. And he was on it like in a month. There's not a lot of build up. So you just had to go with that. I mean, he didn't have a long career, So it wasn't like he had all these crazy old stories that we could talk about. It was just the UFC was kind of nuts, really.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think yes and no. I totally agree. He had a short path and he was fighting on pay-per-views already, right? But since we interviewed him, we've got a better, and we've done a lot of interviews, we got a better idea of what was going. None of us are from California, right? So that area, the old days of that area are kind of like, now we found out a little bit about, how Brennan and the Torrance Academies and where people started popping up. And Paul Varlins' name comes up. John Lober's name comes up. Chemo's name comes up. Those old school California guys come up. So that is territory we didn't get to with Paul, and that hurts. But we got through his career, and I think that's really the important part.
Yeah. And what about like Oleg Taktarov when, we had brought up, his first few fights, which were in Eastern Europe, and he said it was in like those little round circus areas where elephants go. And the first guy won his fight by smashing his opponent's head against like that little ring area, where the elephants would be. He was like, that's how he won. Like Oleg, I mean, talking about like how he was drugged before Henzo and all the other Russians on the card were like fake Russians. And Like, we got a drunk Oleg Taktarov, and
Drinking, not drunk.
He drinking. Wow, he was tipsy, and there was so much there that I don't think we could even catch it all without listening to it like a second and third time.
I mean, and just his tale about when he's out in the desert for like 2 days, walking hundreds of. I was just like, that was nuts, man. Like, the people just dropped him off, like, hey, they didn't get enough money, so they didn't come pick us up. I'm like, dude, how long was he out there? I don't remember how long.
4 or 5 days.
No,
Yeah.
it was like an extended stay. Yeah.
And like, they just had to walk to the next out of there. I was like, dude, they had to walk at night to see the start, and so it wasn't so hot. I was like, man, most people are dead after that. I'm like, you can see why, fighting is not that big of a deal. Like, okay, they're gonna stop it if I start to die. It's not like I'm out in the desert.
Yeah, let's just say that if they drop the Lights Out podcast crew out in Namibia, Chris is maybe the only one with a shot at getting out of there. It's like, just I'll be like, leave me.
And I'm not good with directions. I'll be doing circles. I'll end up right back where I started. It won't be good.
Jesus Christ, that's an amazing story.
I think one of the more enjoyable things also, like, from my perspective, is we get through Aaron Riley, which, man, that's a Hall of Famer. He's got a Hall of Fame career in regards to, like, look at the body of work that, that he's competed in. And at the end, he hits us with crazy Jeff Monson stuff, which puts an entire halt on anybody that we were about to interview, and brings in Jeff Monson and Dennis Hallman to confirm everything that they had said. And both of them were like, oh, yeah, no, it's true. And worse. I mean, it was like, you couldn't believe that these guys were actually friends with each other, because of all the crazy stuff that they did to one another.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm always going to stay on Dennis's good side. I don't want that guy
God.
on my bad side. I don't know if he has any little minions in Indy, but his people might come from where out to mess with my house or so. I'm not.
You want no part of that. You want no part of Dennis Hallman, for sure. For sure. Chris, what about yourself? Who's one of your favorites?
Man, I was fortunate enough. I got a lot of good friends in the industry. I like a lot of the people. I had some really good ones I got to do. My buddy Mitrione, who just got crazy stories all the time. Very open book too. That was a lot of fun for me. Got my good buddy Matt Sarah. That was another great one. And just hearing, man, that dude's old school as can be. Just hearing, coming from New York with the Henzo, with the Gracies, that was pretty awesome. And another guy we've brought up many times, and Joe Riggs is one of my favorite people, and just what he's been through and like his journey. But I mean, we bring him up so many times. Just the other day when we were talking with Warren about when he fought Alex Steebly and just the unbelievable beating he put on. I mean, just pretty good to have some of your friends on and be able to hear their story, which is a lot of fun. But I would say besides that, one of the most interesting ones to me was that Ian Heinrich, man. I mean, just hearing that story, I said, I went back and listened to it again the other day and just was like, man, this is pretty awesome. So I cannot wait for whatever movie they have to make. That's got to be coming out there sometime.
Yeah, Ian, he gave us everything. Like, he literally gave us everything. Like, he didn't hold back. And he was absolutely no stranger to, saying, oh, I broke the law this way, I broke the law that way. When a guy's talking about smuggling cocaine from Colombia to Spain, it's just like, he's not making this up. He's definitely, not pretending in this instance.
Yeah, it's actually, to give people a little taste of it. So he did smuggle drugs, and he was stopped at one point at an airport, and is going through the X-ray system, and he has drugs in his stomach, and somehow gets away with it. So at some point he continues to do this, and he gets flagged again. Yeah. And the second time he gets arrogant. He's like, yeah, take me to the X-ray machine. I don't care. I blew by that last time. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, I just think that's the craziest thing in the world. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't, and that's the one that they got him, and he wound up, doing a lot of time for us. So
including Rikers when he came back.
Yeah, and how he almost got killed there. It was just like, man,
the Latinos saved him.
Yeah, very true.
Your people, Miguel. Your people.
For a day, they said, that's all we can do for you, bro. We're out.
Yeah. Yeah,
you better get out of here right now because
there's some old school throwback fighters in the UFC today, and they all seem to be kind of right around the 185-pound division. You had Ian Heinich, you got Eric Anders, Gerald Merchant is coming up. We got him, I think, in next week. All of those guys, and there's a few others, but they're definitely old school throwback fighters. I mean, Merchant fought with headbutts. Like he might be the last of the Mohicans in regards to that era, and I don't think that gets enough recognition.
Yeah, I think the active fighters, Darren Elkins is another, not
Throwback
in that same weight class, but like another active guy still fighting that we talked to. There's always a different spin on those, there's still a little bit of that, competitive tension. I don't know what you call it, but they're not all fun and games. They're much more serious. I think, Elk is a good example of a guy who's, I think the message was clear on his podcast. It's like, I'm still competing, you know what I mean? And that's very interesting to me. The once that competitiveness is in the past, then you get a different type of story, you know what I mean? So I like that, and I like that we've been able to mix it up and get guys that are still active.
Yeah. You know what? One thing about that I love is when we're getting these old school guys, even talking about guys who retired a long time ago or are still barely around from when, that era was, or who were there through the transition from when it went from headbutts and soccer kicks to, the unified rules we have now. And I make sure I ask every one of them, what do you like better? And every one of them has said, I like the old school, the Vale Tudo, the head. Every one of them said, I want less rules and I want more. Every one of them to T said that. And that's how I am too. I'm the same way. And I prefer it myself.
Yeah. Another person, Brian Garrity, he not only did he come just prepared, like Ben Rothwell wants to kick his ass over what he said in his interview. And he's just like, man, it is what it is, but it's a good story. I don't care. It's a good story. So guys, even Wisniewski, Garrity, some maybe the lesser known people. Carlo Prater was fantastic too. Talking about Brigadero stealing from him. Monty Cox came out. I think he was on 3 times. So Monty's been gold, and we've got more stuff with Monty coming up as well. Monty's been fantastic. What about some of the interviews that, no one was able to get except us? Josh Neer is at the top of that list.
Yeah. That's another old school guy that, man, I loved what he had to say, man. He just a true fighter, just came for the right reasons. It was awesome.
Yeah.
We've been doing this now for about 7 months, and some of the ones that are now about 6-7 months old, if you've missed them, they're well worth going back. A little shout out to our early Hammer House crew guys. We had Brandon Lee Hinkle and Nick Nutter both do interviews. The Nutter one's off the wall because he's a guy that probably people don't even remember, but his stories about fighting in Israel and Brazil and then kind of leaving the sport. Igor Vovchanchin twice, maybe gave Igor his hardest fight ever, and
he beat Igor. The referee didn't count it.
So that's a shout out to Nick Nutter and then, the Hammer House guys. And then we got, the founder, Mark Coleman. How can we go wrong? And then because, Mike has a great relationship with him. I know Mark from the old days. The Coleman interview is a standout interview. I think you want to talk about rare interviews, Mike. I don't think at that level, Mark chilling out at his house where you can see maybe this part of his face on the phone and stuff. But he was definitely talking from the heart.
Let's not forget about Spencer Fisher.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I mean, we were able to capture his career with Spencer, and he was on point. He was on point, and it's somebody that obviously suffering from, various issues that are fight related. And for him to walk us through his career, I think we had him almost 2 hours like that. To me, that was really special as well, Spencer Fisher.
Well, I mean, now that ties into our, Canada connection right there. You had, Stout, you had Hamlin. I mean, you had, some very interesting that shows really the whole thing from, how Canada became big in the MMA. It was kind of neat to hear their story, how they got started. Tompkins, all that. That was very interesting.
Hey, Chris, like when this thing all started, Chris contacted me going, "Hey man, because I was doing like an MMA news podcast. Chris was doing like his little updates on Facebook for like, it's just a natural fit for us. And we're both historians. So Chris came up with the idea, contacting me. And I'm like, hey, we got to bring Miguel into this if we're doing history. And I think we got a really good team, man. Like all of us have really just been pushing as hard as we can to get as much documentation. And we did 80 interviews.
Well, I mean, even in those interviews, like you said, Marowitz, the guy who.
Our Davey.
I mean, geez, man. I mean, you can't get any better than that as far as from the original people. You know what I mean? I don't. Who else could we have on besides that?
Hoist.
Yeah, Hoist.
Who really doesn't do interviews?
I've actually gotten like several compliments in regards to the podcast in general, in regards to 2 interviews. The Marlowe's Conan interview, which was shocking about just how amicable she was with us and open, because usually, she's Dutch, so she's very regimented and very just kind of, 1-2 words, answers. And she really gave us a lot. But also the Mark Schultz interview. That Mark Schultz interview is special. Like, Chris, when we had talked about doing it, it's okay. Well, every Mark Schultz interview that I could find really only like centered around his brother. When you've got somebody that he himself is such an incredible combatant that, like, why hasn't one been done only with him? And I thought we hit that one out of the park. I was real happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think, right off the bat, you could tell Mark kind of just took to it. You know what I mean? I think he's a guy who also, he's been interviewed enough about that subject and stuff that he goes in with a certain amount of expectations, and like we shattered that like right at the very beginning and broke through. So yeah, he was probably him and Meyerowitz, I think, are probably like you guys mentioned, are the 2 interviews that when we started this, I wouldn't even think we'd be ready to do.
Yeah. But I mean, even with Brennan, like we got Chris Brennan, when we were prepping for it, Miguel's like, I don't know if we can do this, because there's so much, Chris Brennan is like.
That's a shout out. Let me shout out Chris. The reason I didn't think we could do it is not because Chris doesn't have the material, but some guys, without mentioning any names, but some guys are like, yeah, I'd love to come back. And then they never come back. Some guys are like, yeah, I'd love to be on. And we have to chase them down and they don't get on. And Chris was easy to work with in terms of a schedule. We were able to set it up. So if anybody else wants to do, I think we're going to, do a kidnapping of Jeremy Horn and set him up with a couple hours a week for a little while too, and redo his career. But if anybody else really, we're 2-hour interviews and stuff like that, we get everything done. But if you really want to go deep, let us know. And we'll take it to the next level. We'll talk about your parents. We'll talk about anything else.
Whatever you want.
Else that comes up.
Chris,
some guys take it like therapy. I really feel that way too. Like Marcus Davis. I think Marcus Davis is a guy who doesn't get interviewed a lot. And I think he was frank and honest. He's right up there with Ian Heinich in terms of story at some points. And I think he just felt better, like getting it out. You know what I mean? And like, I think if you're in that boat, it is important to get that information.
The thing with I'll tell you where we missed with Marcus Davis. What we missed with Marcus Davis was when you read his Wikipedia, it talks about him getting stabbed. It talks about him watching people get shot, things of that nature. It also talks about him witnessing rapes. Now, when you witness a rape, when it's mentioned in that context, more often than not, you're a child and the victim is somebody you really care about.
Yeah,
so like we really went deep with Marcus, but the layers that it kept going, I wouldn't have been comfortable.
Is that your assessment? I mean, I obviously always defer to your assessments in those types of terms. I thought it might have been a jail rape.
No,
that's not okay. That's just my ignorant idea. I was like,
no, you're looking.
Shit
goes
bad in jail. Hey,
No,
in the
'cause
cell
he didn't
next
do a lot
to
of
you, what
time.
can you do but watch, you know?
No, he didn't do a lot of time. It was, in essence, like, yeah, my mom had a lot of guys coming over, a lot of boyfriends, stuff like that. It's just, no, I talked to him several times since the interview, and it's amazing he's on this side of the grass and this side of, the bars. And, like him being alive at this point and a productive member of society, I mean, that guy had every card in the deck stacked against him, and he still pulled through.
Well, it's funny and it sounds like a cliche and stupid. You're like, MMA saved my life. It does sometimes for some people, or fighting or whatever, just that structure and that purpose. Everybody, I mean, some people are amazing people, but they can't direct where they're trying to go and they go in the wrong direction. Sounds like that might be the case for me.
What about here? Let's talk about some of the emotional aspects of the podcast. Josh Thompson, when talking about the Eve Edwards fight, he started crying.
Man. Yeah.
We I hate to say it, but we're revealing things here, so it's a goal. If we can make a fighter cry from emotion too, we will do it.
It means it's a real interview.
Yeah, that's part of the catharsis. There are guys, like I know one in particular that had a personal situation that he completely avoided in the interview and obviously didn't want to go into, and we respect that. But if you want to talk about it, we like the reality of it. We've had Monty's cried. I think we got Chris Brennan crying. We had
Matt Mitrione.
Yeah, we've gotten several people.
Eve Edwards,
where we've tapped into their
when
emotions.
talking about the same fight.
Exactly. I mean, how that fight affected both those guys. I don't think people realize, a lot of people who aren't fighters, the emotion involved with a lot of this, as far as like that one fight, how it affected both the guys. People having to go to therapy. And I was very interested to hear from Patrick Cote. We still have to get him. He's on our list of people to do. But
Diego Sanchez too.
He was on the same one where, I lost to split decision to Matt Serra. And, the difference between winning that and losing that, the financial and just the title stuff was so great. It was like so much built up on this one fight, more than I've ever seen, like many other people have. And to lose that, just how it devastates, it changed me as a person. And I wondered if it did the same for him. I've been asking that when we do the interview, but just the amount of really like therapy that's needed after certain fights, and just seeing people who've the emotional aspect of this sport is so great, more so I would say than any other sport I've ever been involved with. Those are games and they're fun, but I mean, it's not like this is more of a lifestyle, and it's tough to take some of it. And there's the highs are higher and the lows are lower, in my opinion.
Miguel, like you saw Josh Thompson cry because not only did he lose the fight, but maybe the fight wasn't exciting enough. And I was going out there to save the entire division. Like, think about the baggage he was carrying, because he wasn't just thinking of himself. He was thinking about guys that he had to fight later on. And then on the other end, Eve Edwards cried because, well, he didn't get the belt. And I thought I did a good enough job to save the division. You had two guys that were willing to sacrifice themselves and their bodies for everybody else, and one happened to win, and neither got what they deserved. Man, it's hard. It's like that. That's sad. And what about Gray Maynard? Gray Maynard talking about Frankie Edgar, who dropped, recently. We just dropped Frankie Edgar, I think today. I don't know, Miguel, when we're publishing this, but you got both sides of that story as well. You got Frankie's side and Gray's side. Like, I think Gray got real teary-eyed there too.
Yep. No, it's definitely, like I said, a place where I think the guys come on and sometimes you get their guard down. Some guys have been, like I said, not delivering all the information because they want to keep things private, and we're okay with that. But and you know what? Here's the other part of it is I think that an inability to face up to really what happened in the past, or you don't have it square in your head. That's why people turn us down for interviews too.
Yeah.
Like they're not ready yet. They see what we do and they're not ready to do an interview that goes that deep and goes, beyond like, hey, Yeah, I fought for the UFC belt and I lost to Pat Miletich, if you know what I'm referring to.
Pedro Hizzo cried. Yeah, he got teary-eyed when talking about the Couture fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, this is like, yeah, you're on the couch right now. This is therapy right now. Some people aren't ready for that. You're right.
Yeah. But I think that's what makes it interesting, not only for listeners, but for us as well. I mean, Chris, there's been several times where we end the interview and you and I are calling each other like, what? Wait, get Miguel on the line. This is crazy. We're all yelling at each other like those schoolgirls because we're so excited, right? What transpired. So
for sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, here, let's talk about what we're going to do. Jeremy Horn, Chris, you're probably going to have to find him a bed at the firehouse. After Brennan is over with our, like segments, we're going every other week with him. I'm going to map out Jeremy Horn with title fights of other like guys that he has cornered along with his own career. And we're probably going to do, 4 or 5 different episodes, every other week with him as well. So we're going to kind of maintain that and just kind of keep pushing it along while sprinkling in pieces of people's careers in between.
Yeah. I mean, Horn's so knowledgeable and just a guy who just
great guy.
Worked so hard to be, this is what he loves to do, but it's just amazing the amount of knowledge he has. And he's been around the sport. Everybody respects the guy for how hard he's worked and how much knowledge he has. And he's fought everybody in the world. And he's cornered. I didn't realize we went through a little thing out of about 10 of my fights. He cornered against me 3 times. It's just like, you corner everybody against me or what? Is it just me or is it just everybody?
Yeah. But he's got a whole bunch of film on you because he's had to study you so many times for sure. Yeah. Like we're going to be releasing it in a few weeks, with Chris, we do a little deep dive on the first 10 fights of Chris's UFC career. And we have Jeremy on, and Jeremy had almost as much time speaking as you did because he was, he had the opponent, in his corner.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. It's going to drop on January 7th for the fans that are still with us. It's going to be the second podcast of 2022. Leading off will be Gilbert Ivel. So we're trying to not drop off and keep it going strong, and we're doing a good job there. So,
and what are we going to do for 100? I think we got to get Boss Rutten back on. We got to do something special for episode 100.
Yeah, you're right. We got to do something special. We'll have to think about it.
Because it's coming up. It's coming up.
Yeah, it's a period of time, a couple months. So we'll see who pops up. We'll see who pops up.
So, ladies and gentlemen, like, share, subscribe. Dude, we're legitimately growing. Like, it's pretty exciting from our end to see our numbers get up. Hopefully one day we get a check from somebody, but until then, we're just going to keep putting out content. So, Chris, you want to lead us out of here?
All right, everybody. Once again, thank you. Can't wait. And keep paying attention, like and subscribe and all that jazz. And thank you very much. Have a good one. Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.